What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name's Tanner. We are going to be talking again about the Noble today. So I had a number of people comment kind of about some things with the Noble that I didn't realize, most of which didn't apply to my video, but I did want to come back and do a couple things. I wanted to talk through a few of those points that you guys made, which are really amazing and helpful, so I appreciate that. But I also wanted to show you kind of the Noble in context. So what I'm going to do today in this video is we're going to call this Noble Round 2. I'm going to talk through what each of the knobs actually do on the Noble, because there's a little bit of a variation from what I initially understood, but I'm going to talk through some of that. And then I'm going to demo out kind of the Noble in context in a couple different ways that you guys gave me feedback-wise. So excited to dive in today. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk through what the actual knobs on the Noble do. So I was incorrect in one part of what I said in my first video. The volume knob doesn't actually control volume, it controls boost. And so it also has it doesn't do anything when it's plugged in through the DI. And so the way I was demoing the pedal in my first video was through the DI. So technically the volume didn't do anything, but what it does, I'm going to read it, it controls the output level of the 1/4-inch jack. And it's the XLR DI out is independent and not affected by this knob. So the entire time I'm thinking that the volume needs to be adjusted when it doesn't, and when I was using it as an XLR. Now there was one part of the video I think where I was plugging in through the 1/4. I will say, even knowing this information, I still had to gain down my interface a pretty substantial amount to accommodate the pedals. So one way or another, I still had to adjust levels down quite a bit. Okay, the bass knob is a low frequency control centered around 90 to 120 hertz, and this adds the warmth to the tone. So I had it at 50%, which a lot of people said was a lot. So I adjusted that down for this video. And then the treble knob is 3.5K frequency shelf, which is interesting. So I was thinking it was just adjusting everything as is. Now, I will say, small piece of feedback, the word there says volume. So when I'm thinking of volume, I'm thinking of the volume, not a boost. And so I think, kind of wish that it would be a little clearer maybe on the pedal. Maybe that's just me and my lizard brain, but I feel like when I think of volume, I'm like, okay, this is the output of the pedal. But if it affects the boost internally, then obviously that's a different conversation. I wasn't using the 1/4-inch out, and I'm not using it today. So the volume doesn't mean anything. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to test out 2 different variations of the Noble based upon what you guys told me you're using it as. Then I'm going to demo my board. So the demo today is going to be the pre-chorus section of All Hail King Jesus. I chose that moment in that song because when I'm playing it, I'm using a pick kind of not super aggressively, but it's going to be a fun kind of opportunity to showcase sort of the stylistic thing within that song that maybe people don't know or don't hear. It also is going to demonstrate kind of the differences in mainly the mid-range. That's what I noticed when I did this demo. Mid-range is very different. The Noble not having a specific mid-range adjustment kind of was a bit of a bummer for me in this context, knowing what the pedal actually does now. So basically the first run through is going to be, I'm going to plug the Noble into my board in place of the tone hammer. I'm going to turn off the tone hammer and I'm going to run it as the DI out. So the first demo is going to be the Noble as the tone foundation through my board. So it's going to get the Pinstripe buffer at the beginning. And then even when pedals are off, it'll still affect the tone slightly. So you're going to get everything that you would going into my tone hammer and then out of the Noble. I will say, I think this is the most uncommon use for this. Most people I talked to said they were basically using it as the DI for the tone hammer. So that's going to be the second way I demo it. I'm going to have the tone hammer and then my DB316 on as I would in any other set. I'm just not running it into the Neve. I'm running it into the Noble as the DI out. And I think this is the way that most people are utilizing this pedal. Now, I tried drives with just the Noble and it did not sound good. It didn't work at all. Drives did sound a bit better when the tone hammer is involved because the tone hammer is the core tone piece. The Noble in the second example is not the core tone piece. So it is more like where you want to add some dynamics. And then basically the third variation, I'm going to show you my board as is through the Neve. And I'm going to kind of demonstrate the differences there. So in that first example where the Noble is in the place of the tone hammer, these are the settings that I basically settled on. So I had a little bit more, lot less bass and a lot less treble than in my first example. I had those both at 50%. Again, I'm using the DI, so the volume doesn't matter. Okay, and in the second example, these are the settings that I landed on. So I dipped the bass a little bit and I dipped the treble a little bit. And again, the volume doesn't matter because the XLR out is not affected by the volume. As in the other video, I'm going to be using the exact same bass. I didn't mention in that it's a passive jazz bass. Make sure, active passive is going to make a big difference here. It's a passive jazz bass. I've got the front pickup all the way up, the back pickup all the way off, and the tone knob all the way up as I do any other time. They're Lollar's 60 style pickups, just like anything else. So this should be the closest one-to-one comparison of what this pedal would sound like in context based on what I'm doing. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, so that first example, I automatically, when you look at the waveform, it's really, really drastic and dramatic. I understand now why people would add onboard compression if the Noble is in place of the tone hammer. I don't dislike the tone, but it just isn't for me. It's a little too rounded. The mid-range feels very like low, mid, heavy, like I said in the last video. Doesn't really feel like it is a home run for me in that context. But again, that's probably 10 to 20% of you mentioned it that way. Now I'm going to talk about the second example. Here we go. Okay, the second example feels a lot better to me. The Noble warms things. It adds low mids. It kind of like rounds out the tone. So, for me, I'm not looking to do that. So, not against it again. It's cool. If you want to use it, feel free, be my guest. I still prefer what the Neve does personally. And for me, it just doesn't it smooths things out, and in the context of a soloed out tone, it might sound really nice, but in the context for me, it doesn't quite do what I want it to do. Again, this is way closer, and I wouldn't be mad if I was using that. Again, you just have to kind of weigh the cost of is it worth paying what its cost is and the amount that you need to get it. That's up to you. And if you feel like it's worth it and you love what it sounds like, then more power to you. But yeah, let's test out my board now. first thing I notice is there's a lot more natural compression. I don't have onboard compression because of the fact that the overdrive acts as a compressor. So I don't feel like that needs a whole lot extra. There's nothing in post. By the way, I didn't mention that originally. This is like absolutely bare bones what I would send to front of house any given day. So yeah, it doesn't, my board has a lot more natural compression. When you look at the wave files, it's very, very like, compressed, really nice and clean across the board. And yeah, I feel like it has more of a punch, more of a presence. I hope you guys could tell that I wasn't adding or subtracting anything from my playing. I tried really hard to stay as flat as I could with my takes, but it just has more energy to it, in my opinion. So if I were to rate these, I would definitely still prefer my board as number one. Again, number two for me would definitely be the Noble being used as a DI. I'm not against it. It's just not for me. But if you're doing it and it's working, you're probably in the ballpark of, if you're trying to sound, like the tone that I'm going for, you're definitely in the ballpark, I think. Definitely wouldn't use it in place of the tone hammer. Think we can all agree on that. Okay, so hopefully this was a bit better demonstration-wise. I know that the first video, gave you guys a snapshot. I don't know if it was really great contextually, but hopefully this video helped kind of add a little bit more to the conversation. And again, in that first video, when I used the Noble by itself, definitely just XLR out. So when you're using it, if you decide to use that 1/4 inch out, just be aware that that volume creates like the boosted volume from the tubes. So just be really aware of that. So yeah, in conclusion, I think for me, I still, think it's a great pedal for certain styles. I think I would use it in certain contexts, not against, other people using it. For me and what I do, I just don't see it as something that I can personally justify snagging for the price point. Again, if it was a little cheaper, I think I could justify it. I have a lot of intentionality behind the choices that I've made. A lot of it is based on the mix with the musicians you're playing with. Like if your guitar players are like chugging away with power chords, this might actually fit better, because it kind of fills up the spaces you need filled. Because mix is king. So if you are using this and your sound guy's stoked and your congregation or whoever you're playing for is stoked, then great. Might be a little biased because I've done what I've done for a long time, but there's great musicians and great mix engineers that went before me where I have played, and those guys really know what they're talking about. And so it's hard to deviate from just really excellent stuff. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one.